So we completed our discussion of senior managers and sponsors. A key role they had was doing project selection. So we went off on this tangent, this aside, to discuss different techniques in project selection. So let's get back to the classic types of stakeholders on projects. And another key stakeholder is the functional manager. So functional managers have three different names: functional managers, department managers, or line managers. And their key role is they own all the resources. And we're borrowing resources from these folks for our project. Typically on the test, by default, we're assuming we're in matrix, either strong matrix or balanced matrix. And even if we're in strong matrix and we're quite large and in charge and have all this power and authority, we typically don't own any resources. We typically don't have any direct reports, and we don't own any tools or own any equipment. We're borrowing all the resources, the tools, the equipment, the people, and such, and we're borrowing all this from functional managers or department managers. And therefore, there's going to inevitably be conflict between the project manager and the functional manager on the timing and the use of these resources. There are going to be a number of questions on the test where you are in conflict with a functional manager over the timing or the use of the resources, and how you resolve that problem, or the best answer for resolving that problem, probably depends on what type of authority you have. Are you in weak matrix with very little authority? Are you much more empowered in strong matrix? So that's going to lead you to the better answer. But nonetheless, all the answers, you really want a win-win solution where both parties come out well. You're not winning at the other person's expense. Because the functional managers are providing resources to the project, they have to approve the project management plan, because the schedule, especially the schedule baseline in the project management plan and the resource plan, is defining how we're using resources. So they have to approve at least those elements in the project management plan. The most important stakeholder on any project is the customer. Oftentimes on the test, we're doing our project for an external customer. Our company is under contract with an external company to create a new product, create a new service, and we're managing this project, creating these deliverables for this external customer. Therefore, they're formally approving these deliverables, and we'll talk later about the processes where that occurs. They're typically approving parts, at least, of the project management plan. They're approving the three baselines: the scope baseline, the schedule baseline, and the cost baseline. They're typically approving that. And in other words, they might be approving everything in the project management plan too. So there also can be internal customers. So a customer in our own company, we're creating this product for another department, another division inside our own company perhaps. And again, they're formally approving our deliverables. So just like senior managers, they can give us constraints. So any of those triple constraints: scope, time, and cost, or quality, resources, and risk. And they also can define the priorities of those different constraints. Another stakeholder that's often on projects today is the PMO, or Project Management Office. And in the beginning of PMO several decades ago, most PMOs were probably supportive. They were invented, they were there to help the project teams and help the project manager, provide training on project management, provide good tools and templates: a good template of a scope statement, a good template of a WBS, a good template of a risk breakdown structure, and such. Leverage these things. Don't reinvent the wheel. Use the ones the PMO has provided. Also, they're often tracking and archiving good historical records from previous projects that will help us too, so we can do better estimating of time and cost and such. So it didn't take PMOs very long to kind of switch from being supportive into being controlling. So now in controlling, they're not only providing all these good tools and templates and historical records, they're now auditing us. They're now checking on the projects to see that you're using these good tools and templates and historical records and following their best practices, following their rules. So they're setting up all these rules. In version 5 of the PMBOK guide, they also came out with another type of PMO, the directing PMO or directive PMO. So now in directive, the PMO has even gone farther and they're just taking over control of running the projects. Here's a very busy chart of all these different organizational structures and mapping the role of the project manager, what type of authority the project manager has, who's controlling the budget, how are the work groups organized, all sorts of information like that. So it's organizing all that by these different organizational structures that we discussed. To me, the two structures you want to pay the most attention to here are balanced matrix and strong matrix, because this is the default for the exam. You're assuming, if they don't say anything else, you're a project manager in either balanced matrix or strong matrix. So I'm leaning towards strong matrix. Again, we've got all sorts of authority in strong matrix. We've got budgetary powers over the project budget, and we've got a lot of influence on the resources in our project in strong matrix too. Do we own those resources? Are those resources our direct reports? No, we're borrowing those resources from functional managers, but we're higher up on the organizational chart than most of the functional managers. So therefore, we've got a lot of influences on those resources. But where is their loyalty and why? Where is the loyalty of the team members that we're borrowing for our project, even in strong matrix? It's really back to the functional manager in most cases. And why is that? Well, they've got a much longer term relationship with that functional manager. Maybe they're only on our project for a month or a couple of months or even less. So their loyalty is back to the functional manager. Also, it's the functional manager who's responsible for all the care and feeding, if you will, of that resource. So who's making the decisions on salaries? Who's doing the performance evaluation each year? The functional manager is. In strong matrix, we're probably, as PM, providing quite a bit of input into that, but nonetheless, the functional manager is making that decision. They're making the decisions on whether the resource gets a new laptop, gets to go to a particular training class. So that helps explain where their loyalties lie.